Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
We have big stories on two key personalities in the flood control scandal. There's disgraced DPWH engineer Henry Alcantara, who, according to his lawyer, is not recanting. Then there's the so-called queen of contractors, Sara Diskaya, who just pleaded not guilty to a ghost project case.
Another supposed player in questionable infrastructure is the still at large Zaldiko. The Marcos administration says it is exploring all means to bring the former congressman back, Interpol and United Nations channels, even an extradition treaty that could take years.
And Senate President Tito Sotto says that he will act on the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte and President Marcos with dispatch, but only if such complaints hurdle the House.
My clients are obviously they're under a great deal of emotional burden.
Kami ang nag-file sa PRC nung pagtatanggal ng mga lisensya. Niga Alcantara, niga Bryce, niga Mendoza et al. Marami pa tayong ifa-file ng mga kaso dito sa mga bagong mga engineer na kinasuhan natin.
Through the Interpol, magre-request na kami ng repatriation ni Zaldiko kung nasa Portugal talaga siya.
A treaty will take too long. So the other avenues possible, pag-aralan namin kung paano natin magagawa ang extradition niya, not passing through a treaty.
The camp of dismissed Public Works District Engineer Henry Alcantara has officially shot down recantation rumors. In a statement released through his lawyer, Emil Carlo Joven, Alcantara said he is not retracting his prior statements on the flood control project controversy and called reports saying otherwise false and misleading. The statement further said Alcantara will fulfill his obligations under the Memorandum of Agreement with the Department of Justice. This is a prerequisite for his admission into the Witness Protection Program, which is to assist authorities in the pursuit of truth and accountability. Recall that Alcantara tagged politicians in the flood scam and testified before the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee about alleged payoffs from infrastructure projects in his district. The DOJ has said it has not received nor reviewed any affidavit of recantation from Alcantara.
Meantime, Alcantara was at the Justice Department today for proceedings related to his application to the Witness Protection Program. This was confirmed by DOJ spokesperson Polo Martinez, who did not give further details on the proceedings. Alcantara is also the first of the so-called BGC boys to lose his civil engineering license. The Professional Regulation Commission confirmed the license revocation today. The agency said the decision is grounded on the investigation of the DPWH, which found Alcantara administratively liable for grave offenses over the disbursement of public funds for ghost projects. Alcantara, however, can still appeal the decision within 15 days.
Kung maaalala nyo, last year, kami ang nag-file sa PRC nung pagtatanggal ng mga lisensya. Niga Alcantara, niga Bryce, niga Mendoza et al. So natutuwa tayo, nagpapasalamat tayo sa PRC na lumabas na yung desisyon. At hinihintay pa natin lumabas yung desisyon ng iba pang mga engineer na pinapatanggalan natin ng lisensya. At marami pa tayong ifa-file ng mga kaso dito sa mga bagong mga engineer na kinasuhan natin. So tuloy-tuloy yan. At lahat yan, hindi na makakapag-practice lahat yan.
Now, before these developments, journalist Mon Tulfo alleged that the trio of Henry Alcantara, Bryce Hernandez, and JP Mendoza are in talks with the camp of Vice President Sara Duterte. In a post on social media, Tulfo said the three are allegedly betting that Duterte, who may be facing another impeachment complaint next month, will be acquitted and could later grant them executive clemency if she wins the presidency in 2028. Tulfo further claimed that these supposed back-channel talks explain the reported move by Alcantara to recant. Again, Alcantara had named several politicians linked to the controversial flood control projects, including some senators who are said to be allied with the Duterte family and could play a role if the Senate again convenes as an impeachment court. The Office of the Vice President has yet to comment on this matter.
Meantime, the Marcos administration says it is exploring all means to bring Zaldiko back to the Philippines. They are not ruling out an extradition treaty with Portugal, where the former congressman is believed to be hiding. But for now, that is a long shot. Mobile Journal Amy Atienza has this story.
The newest marching orders from President Bongbong Marcos. All means should be exhausted to bring former Ako Bicol Party List Representative Zaldiko back to the Philippines. So the Interior Department is now coordinating with Interpol and other channels to deliver. Per the DILG's latest information, Ko is still in Portugal using a Portuguese passport. There's suspicion that the former chairman of the House Appropriations Committee could even be holding a European Golden Visa, which is only issued to investors.
Nagbigay ng instructions sa President na formally mag-apply na kami ng extradition treaty sa kanila kahit wala pang formal extradition treaties between the two countries. Pero through the Interpol, magre-request na kami ng repatriation ni Zaldiko kung nasa Portugal talaga siya.
But Remulla said extradition is just one of the options. For the DILG chief, a better word at this point is repatriation.
The President instructed to study the possibility of applying for an extradition for Zaldiko with Portugal. Pinag-aaralan pa namin kasi ang magulo dito ay wala tayong extradition treaty. But there are other avenues that we can pursue na gusto niyang pag-aralan. There is the Interpol, there is the United Nations, there are other agencies which we can pass through. So pinapag-aralan niya sa amin kung paano gagawin. A treaty will take too long. A treaty takes years and years to do.
Okay.
So the other avenues possible, in instructions sa amin ay pag-aralan namin kung paano natin magagawa ang extradition niya not passing through a treaty. We'll look for all possible means to repatriate Zaldiko to the Philippines.
Recall that the NBI had already requested the Interpol in December for a red notice against Ko. This notice is not an international arrest warrant, but only allows Interpol to direct law enforcement agencies in member countries to look for Ko and hold him temporarily. At the moment, Zaldiko is the subject of an arrest warrant over an alleged 289.5 million peso anomalous flood control project in Oriental Mindoro. He is believed to be involved in other irregularities over infrastructure projects. From Malacanang, aside from bringing home Ko, other issues were also addressed. There's the so-called anti-EPAL provision in the 2026 General Appropriations Act, where politicians are now prohibited from participating in aid or ayuda distribution.
Pag may violation ng mga politicians, ang tinatawag namin ng mga mamamayan na picturean, i-post sa Facebook at pwede namin imbestigahan. Kung recidivist ang attitude ng local government, local chief executive, pwede namin ipasa sa ombudsman to for admin and criminal cases.
Then there's the issue of Baguio City Mayor and resigned ICI Special Advisor Benjamin Magalong calling Health Secretary Ted Herbosa a liar. That's over Herbosa's statement that guarantee letters are no longer needed in DOH hospitals. Palace press officer, who has had a few verbal exchanges with Magalong, has this reminder.
So bago po siguro magsalita ang isang tao na sinungaling, kailangan muna nilang humarap sa salamin at tanungin nila sa sarili nila, sino ba talaga ang sinungaling?
Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Now, to help us make sense of legal issues coming out of our headlines tonight is former IBP National President, Attorney Domingo Igon Cayosa. Good evening to you and welcome back to the Big Story, Attorney.
Good evening, Ces, Shawn, and Pauline. Magandang gabi sa ating mga kababayan.
What are the avenues, Attorney, available to the Philippines under international law to bring back Zaldiko to the Philippines?
The easiest is the cancellation of his passport to facilitate or compel or encourage the host country to deport him back. So that one. The second one is to request the Interpol through a red notice for assistance for his apprehension. It's covered by another treaty. Another one is to request through diplomatic channels for the assistance of the host country, in this case, Portugal, under the auspices of the UN Convention Against Corruption. That's another convention, that's another international treaty where practically all countries, including the Philippines and Portugal, have agreed to cooperate to curb corruption. There could also be diplomatic requests, diplomatic channels requesting Portugal to the DFA, or even a presidential intervention.
Well, some of these have been done by the government, like the cancellation of his passport. But if he's a holder of other passports, then that doesn't really have any effect, right?
That's possible, but our understanding is that the other passport that he might have is also a Portuguese passport. So it's well within the powers, authority, and discretion of Portugal whether or not they will cooperate with us. Most probably they will, because Portugal is a part of the European Community, EU, and these countries are very particularly against and vigilant against corruption.
Right.
So we expect that they would cooperate with us.
All right. If you could kindly comment on this, here goes the government again, announcing what steps they're taking, which they could have like months ago.
Yes, I share your wonder and apprehension, because this should have been done so many months ago. I don't know if this is the only time that they're acting on it, or this is the only time that they are announcing it because they'll soon have some results. We don't know, but you're correct. This should have been done assiduously by the government right from the very start.
Or quietly. They could have done this, quietly through diplomatic channels.
Correct. Less publicity, because diplomacy is usually done quietly, backdoor channeling, without much publicity or politicking.
Okay, and we have this saying, no, kung gusto may paraan, kung ayaw, napakadaming dahilan. Does it strike you that that saying is applicable in this case based on the recent events and how they've been unfolding, attorney?
Yes, that's very applicable here and in many other controversial cases besetting our country. Diba? Masyadong maraming palusot, masyadong maraming technicality. And if you look at the track record of our justice system, including the judiciary, law enforcement, and the executive, nauso yung dribble. Diba? And to us, the other saying that was justice delayed is justice denied is also very true. Once there is a delay, it breeds yung distrust of government. At the same time, it provides opportunity for the accused or the respondents to maneuver, use politics, undue influence, or even corruption to avoid accountability or liability.
And that's exactly what's been happening, Attorney Igo, no? Na bali-balita ngayon, right? Yung recantation supposedly of the Bulacan engineers, district engineers. What do you make of that whole mess? Is it still possible for them to recant? Because sinabi na nga na, syempre, nagbalik sila ng pera. So obviously, they're also complicit.
Well, it is possible for them to recant, but the consequences upon them, the person who recants, is very dire, it's very serious. He can be charged for perjury, or they can throw the book at him. Okay, so recantation doesn't absolve you. It will only add to your problem. And as I've been suspecting all along, when people or politicians talk about or leak or feed fake news like recantations, you suspect that this would come from those who would benefit from such misinformation, or if it is true, such recantation. And who are these? Ito yung mga magnanakaw. So dapat mapanuri tayo, we should be careful, critical, and let's fact check rather than engage in all kinds of speculation, wala naman pala.
Attorney, wanted to go back quickly to one option you mentioned for the Philippine government to bring back Zaldiko, and that's through presidential intervention. How would that work, attorney? No? And mas mabilis ba yun na paraan compared to, let's say, applying, requesting for an extradition treaty with Portugal, which could take years?
Well, you're correct. The longest route would be extradition treaty. Baka hindi pa na-approve yung extradition treaty, tapos na yung termino ng presidente natin, di ba? So that's the longest route. But in many cases, if it's important enough, and I think many would agree with us when we say this is a very important case. So presidential intervention, head of state dialogue or request or communication goes a long way. If you remember, dun sa natin kay former Congressman Teves, kinausap talaga yung leader nung pinagtataguan niya. And we could do that with Portugal. We have enough cultural and historical ties with Portugal.
Pero attorney, what if meron siyang Portuguese passport? So magkakaroon tayo ng ibang problema kay Arnie Teves, which is citizen siya nung parehong bansa, which means he could seek protection from the other state since hinahabol siya nung ibang state, or meron bang batas na or international law na pang-counter doon?
Well, the state has a choice to surrender even its own citizen, even if he's not a Filipino citizen. If they value enough our diplomatic relations, or they believe in the justness and the importance of this case and this anti-corruption campaign, then they will surely surrender that person, whether they're citizen or our citizen. They don't want to be, these countries don't want to be coddlers of criminals and grafters. Yung nasanay lang tayo sa Pilipinas kasi na yung mga magnanakaw nakakalusot o kaya nananalo pa sa election. So in these countries, they're very strict, no? I'm pretty certain that given the circumstances, they will cooperate. The challenge on the part of government is to show to the whole world that we are serious about it.
Plus,
But
there
what happens now is nababalot ng politikahan, ang bagal magdesisyon, ang ating mga korte, ang bagal, paiba-iba ang mga at kanya-kanyang press release, and selective pa kung minsan ang ating mga kampanya against corruption. So, hindi nakakatulong yan.
Because there is that suspicion that they'd rather really have Zaldiko, go around the world and never come back, because he may spill the beans on other high-ranking personalities in government.
That's another good point. And, it's not only a possibility. Through his video publicity stunts, he has been naming names. He has been accusing others. And if he is brought to the country and he maintains those allegations and can substantiate and corroborate this and magbigay ng mga resibo, ebidensya, it will be really a tough position for those being named by him or being implicated by him.
Based on your own personal assessment, do you think the government is serious in getting Zaldiko back?
But there are some indications that they are, but intent is not important, or even our assessment or results are most important. We will believe it when he is brought back here. And, it is not true that it is difficult to bring him back here. There are many ways of doing that. To his world to get smaller, why doesn't government ask for preliminary attachment of all his assets and freeze his accounts? Why doesn't government file civil immobilize him, and he has at his command and discretion lots of money, many of which might have been stolen. He will use that stolen money to escape from the long arm of the law.
Well, I believe they've done that, not civil forfeiture yet, but they've confiscated some of his air assets. Yes.
His cars.
Yeah.
Air
And his
assets,
cars.
all the banks and credit cards, lahat dapat yan eh. And there's a way of doing that. Since, as they claim, the evidence is solid, and we've seen many of these well-publicized affidavits, statements, and most probably the court will cooperate kung natututukan natin yan at seryoso ang gobyerno.
Sino pong gagawa niyan? Ombudsman, DOJ? Anong ahensya?
Well, if it is anti-graft, it's handled by the ombudsman. But this is only one government. Magtulungan ng DOJ, NBI, AMLA, everybody else. Hindi rin maganda yung nangyayari na nagpapasahan. Di ba? Pati ICI, yung nagpapasahan na sila eh. So, instead of focusing on getting results, nangyayari napapasa-pasa lang yung mga press statements at mga responsibilidad eh.
May isa pang angulo dito, attorney, na parang lahat ng tao nakafocus, hinahanap si Zaldiko, ginagamit na excuse na hindi nila makuha at mahagilap si Zaldiko. But let's just say hindi nila makuha si Zaldiko. How should these investigations proceed? And is it possible to proceed with prosecution even without him? Like, how important is he really? We don't even really know what kind of evidence he's holding. He purports to hold a lot, but we don't know for sure.
That's a very good point, no? Para bang we are dazzled by Zaldiko. But there are many others who are co-accused or perhaps equally guilty or even more guilty. And there might be enough evidence still in the country. While they are here, they should have already done case build-up, and they should have been filing cases left and right. Yung delay, di ba? It doesn't even help that there were promises of not Merry Christmas for these people and nothing much happened. So that doesn't add to the confidence level ng taong bayan sa kampanya. So you're correct. Let's not be fooled by just focusing on Zaldiko. There are many others who are in the list and who are in the know and who are implicated, and there is enough evidence against them. Unahin sana nila yon. They can get to Zaldiko some other time.
But looking at the bigger picture, attorney, it's been months already since the Marcos administration really began this probe into the flood control scandal. What are your thoughts on how the investigations have transpired and even the cases? Some are saying it lost momentum ever since the Christmas break. There were deadlines given December 15, pero wala pa ring nakulong. What are your thoughts?
But insofar as the investigations are concerned, there is more transparency now, most especially sa Senado. Nakita natin. Of course, we couldn't avoid political grandstanding. Many inuuna nila yon. But ganun talaga sila. Politician sila eh. But very transparent sila doon. Yung ICI, it started really handicapped. They all knew we should thank them for their civic-mindedness. But it might have been wishful thinking for them to think they will succeed because kulang naman talaga sila ng poder. Wala pa silang mga immunities, they didn't have power, they didn't have resources. So,
if I may interrupt you there, whose fault is that? Who shall we blame for the walang teeth, walang power, walang support, walang budget ang ICI? Malacanang?
Well, of course, it's Malacanang who established this by an executive order. So, kung talagang seryoso at alam naman nila kulang yung poder, why did they did not ask Congress to quickly pass a law to give more teeth to the ICI, give it funding, give it stability, personnel, and resources in the ad hoc.
Okay.
So that's one. But so it did help also that ICI initially said they'll be transparent, but pagdating sa mga big fish o yung mga important people, powerful people, executive session na. So that was also a big letdown. So, and then at the start of the year, if you remember, bakante na yung ombudsman noong July, matagal bago nakapag-appoint. So, because we've been saying all along, the ombudsman is the most powerful investigator and prosecutor. Kaya lang, matagal nag-appoint. Nung na-appoint naman siya, he had problems with his personnel at hindi rin natupad yung kanyang pangako for Christmas. So, these are all the confluences of events na in hindsight, it could have been handled much better by the powers that be.
But we cannot yet conclude na, they're dragging their feet because they're not really serious. Is that too much of a stretch naman?
Oh, naman, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. We continue to pray for them. It's good that you talk about it in mass media because they know we're watching. Vigilance is also very important. As we give them the benefit of the doubt, we pray for them to have the courage and the heroism to really address this huge corruption scandal impartially and justice for all. Kailangang binabantayan din natin sila. We also have to make them accountable to the people. After all, they're all public officials, just like the other respondents.
Well, we thank you very much for your time and your insight. Former IBP National President, Attorney Domingo Egon Cayosa.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, so-called queen of contractors Sara Diskaya pleads not guilty to charges of graft and malversation over an alleged ghost project in Davao Occidental. The details when the big story returns. Stay tuned.
The big story is back with news on the arraignment of contractor Sara Diskaya in Roma Rimando and 8 DPWH officials in Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu. All pleaded not guilty to graft and malversation charges in connection with the 96.5 million peso ghost flood control project in Davao Occidental. A surprise in the middle of the hearing, though, at the Lapu-Lapu City RTC Branch 27. That's when Assistant District Engineer Michael Awa suddenly declared that he's guilty. Awa immediately realized his mistake and corrected it.
Procedure is when our clients, the accused, are being read the charges against them. My clients are obviously they're under a great deal of emotional burden. However, they remain to be hopeful that everything will work out for them.
Pre-trial is set on February 3. Meanwhile, the court dismissed a motion to quash and to transfer the accused to Davao Occidental. The defense questioned the court's jurisdiction over the case. The Lapu-Lapu City RTC explained the merits of the case won't be affected, citing the time when the Maguindanao massacre case was transferred to Manila.
Feel strongly about our position that the court in Lapu-Lapu City has no jurisdiction. That's why if you have noted it earlier, we manifested our intention to question the joint resolution of the court, although we proceeded with the arraignment, but without prejudice to our right to pursue the issue of lack of jurisdiction. We'll file a motion for reconsideration or petition for certiorari. So we will be moving forward without abandoning our remedies.
In related news, Malacanang says President Bongbong Marcos has not issued any directive to halt the work of the ICI or Independent Commission for Infrastructure. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro reacted to questions raised about the ICI's future now that its 4 original members are down to 1. In an interview yesterday on our sister program StoryCon, ICI Special Advisor Rodolfo Azurin said that the ICI is operating with only 1 commissioner, which prevents the body from holding hearings. This also means that the commission cannot proceed with referrals to the Office of the Ombudsman. Undersecretary Castro said the palace will wait for the formal communication before any decision is made. She did make it clear, though, that the ICI should continue carrying out its mandate as a fact-finding and investigative panel.
Sa ngayon, wala pong anumang panag-uutos pa ang Pangulo, kundi pagpatuloy pa rin ang kanilang mandato, ipagpatuloy pa rin ang kanilang pag-iimbestiga at maging fact-finding committee pa rin po sila. Wala pong nakakarating sa akin, on my part, on my end, wala pa po sa ating ipinaparating na anumang update kung magkakaroon po ng replacement.
Earlier today, the ICI and different government agencies held a technical working group meeting on asset recovery. Azurin said they will continue to explore methods to prosecute all individuals involved in the flood control scandal.
We just have to wait kung ano yung magiging fate ng ICI gaya ng interview ko kahapon. So we just continue to do our thing, kung ano yung mga respective role namin, gawin lang namin yung trabaho namin. So that pagdating ng bagong commissioners, kung may darating, at least naka-ready na for filing yung mga referral na i-akyat.
And in other news, Senate President Tito Sotto says he will act swiftly on any impeachment complaint filed against President Bongbong Marcos or Vice President Sara Duterte. In a text message, Sotto said that as Senate President, he will move, quote, with dispatch forthwith. He is referring to a constitutional provision that mandates the upper chamber to forthwith proceed to a trial once an official is impeached by the House of Representatives. The Senate, under the leadership of then Senate President Cheese Escudero, had earlier faced criticism for allegedly sitting on the impeachment case against VP Duterte. And that case was later archived in August last year after the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional for violating the one-year ban on filing multiple impeachment complaints against the same official. Asked if the Senate is already preparing for a possible impeachment trial, Sotto said that would be, quote, putting the cart before the horse. He stressed that the key issue is whether a complaint exists and whether it will pass the House. At present, no impeachment complaint has been formally filed against President Marcos. However, House Senior Deputy Minority Leader Egay Erice earlier said that some lawmakers are ready to endorse a complaint over alleged betrayal of public trust linked to the national budget. For its part, the Makabayan Bloc says it will support an impeachment complaint against the Vice President once the one-year ban expires on February 6th.
For ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino, there are grounds for a possible impeachment complaint against the President and the Vice President. We discussed this with him tonight. Thank you for joining us again, Congressman Tino.
Hi, good evening, Ces, Pauline, and Shawn. Thank you for having me here.
Let's zero in first on the possible impeachment complaint against the President. Are you supporting this move?
Well, what we have said is that there are grounds to impeach the President. And of course, this has to do with the unprecedented, the massive flood control corruption issue, because we're talking about systematic plunder of the DPWH budget under the Marcos Jr. administration, the first 3 years of the Marcos Jr. administration. And of course, the President is ultimately responsible for that. But more than that, the President has direct responsibility, direct approval over the unprogrammed appropriations. And as we know, it has been revealed that there was massive abuse as well of unprogrammed appropriations where thousands, literally thousands of additional flood control projects that have also been connected to kickbacks were funded through unprogrammed appropriations. So these have to be directly approved by the President according to law. Plus, we also have allegations from key players, including Yusek Bernardo and Zaldiko, that they made insertions in behalf of the President and paid kickbacks for the President in connection with this. So these are definitely grounds for impeachment.
Have you been talking to the proponents of this complaint? Have you been approached?
Yes, we have. So this is why I am able to mention such grounds, for example. So there are discussions.
So to clarify Ces's question, there is another group because they would need, of course, the support of someone from the lower house, and you guys are willing to support whoever the filers are with these grounds that you just stated, just to be clear.
Well, we are in communication with some groups in civil society, but not necessarily all that may be interested in filing.
What do you mean? There are several groups?
Well, for example, it's been reported in the news that according to Representative Erice, he was approached by certain individuals. They're associated with the supporters of the Vice President. So we're not in contact with that group, for example. That's what I meant.
So there, whose group are you in contact with? Are you at liberty to disclose?
Well, more or less, they come from the groups that participated in the the September 21 and September 30 rallies at Luneta. No, some of them are from those who mobilized at the time.
But Congressman, for you, is command responsibility a strong basis for betrayal of public trust? And taking a look at the composition right now of the House of Representatives, would you say lulusot talaga itong impeachment against President Marcos?
Well, command responsibility is certainly it's important because, as I said, the ultimate safeguard against massive, and we're not just talking about retail level corruption, but this was a systematic plunder of the DPWH budget for 3 years. No, so the president has the power, not one, to veto, then two, the power to stop spending, control over the release of funds. Okay, so that's one. But we're not just talking now about command responsibility here. I mentioned there's direct approval over unprogrammed appropriations. So command responsibility over the whole budget, then direct responsibility for unprogrammed appropriations, and then lastly, allegations coming from key players, including the star whistleblower Yusek Bernardo, who says that he prepared 51 billion worth of insertions for the president and delivered 8 billion pesos in kickbacks for the president. Yusek Bernardo supposedly said this to Senator Lacson, who shared it on record in Senate, while Senate was in Senate plenary. Okay, and Yusek, if you don't believe Zaldiko, kasi he also said something similar. If you don't believe Zaldiko, then you have to listen to Yusek Bernardo, because his other testimony is relied upon by the administration and by the ombudsman to charge other officials. So why would there now be a double standard where, well, we'll believe some of what Yusek Bernardo says when it comes to other officials, but what he says about the president, we'll just disregard. Hindi naman pwede yun, di ba?
Pero do you have the numbers nga to follow up on Paui's question earlier? Lulusot ba to?
Well, lulusot ba to? Well, obviously, this would be an uphill battle in the House, given the support that the president still has in the House. As far as we know, the majority, with the presidential son, as the majority leader, no less. As far as we know, they support the president, and as we know, impeachment is ultimately a political process, a numbers game. So we're not saying this is going to be a walk in the park. However, um, uh, if the grounds are compelling, then it will become more difficult to simply dismiss any impeachment complaint.
What is the inclination of the minority? Because like, as you said, it seems like a lot of groups are mulling over an impeachment against or filing impeachment against BBM. But like you said, no, parang pwede namang umusad na lang yung kaso. You mentioned Yusek Bernardo. If you're gonna wait for his testimony to play out in court, why not just wait for it instead of take a gander and support an impeachment claim when you, like you said, the majority leader is none other than his son, Sandro Marcos.
Well, if we're talking about involvement of no less than the president in kickbacks, insertions and kickbacks, then, as you know, the president is immune from suit. So no suit will prosper while the president is in office. So the only means to hold a sitting president accountable is through impeachment.
How about an impeachment complaint against VP Sara? Is the ACT Teachers Party List also supporting one should February, the deadline, I mean, the one-year bar expires?
Well, definitely, because in the previous Congress, ACT Teachers, my predecessor, Congresswoman Franz Castro, was one of the endorsers of that complaint. I was a complainant. No, at the time I was not yet in Congress. So definitely we will support the impeachment of the impeachment trial of the vice president. Right now, we are one of the petitioners asking for the Supreme Court to reconsider its decision that caused the archiving of the Senate of the trial at the Senate. So we were still hoping, and we urge the Supreme Court to resolve this as soon as possible so that the trial may resume. But if that doesn't happen, then the option is to file another impeachment complaint after February 6, when the one-year bar supposedly expires.
And is that ready? Is it ready once the deadline passes?
It's ready. I mean, because essentially the issue remains. The vice president has never been able to sufficiently address the issue of what happened, not just to the 125 million spent in 11 days in 2022, but to 612.5 million. This is not a joke. This amount of confidential funds that have not been explained. And in our impeachment complaint, there's strong evidence that this was in fact used in violation, or in other words, there's corruption in the use of the 612.5 million in confidential funds. So yes, the complaint is ready, and there's more information that has emerged that will further strengthen it. I'm talking about Madriaga affidavit.
All right, so once session resumes, uulan ng impeachment complaints just sa House of Representatives. Is that an accurate statement to make?
Maybe, but that's probably accurate, but also di lang naman yun ang gagawin ng Kongreso. So there are also important bills that Congress has to address and that we will be pushing for. So including the bill on national minimum wage, which already is approved at the committee level, the anti-dynasty law, the reform of the party list system, among others.
All right, we thank you for talking to us once again. ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino. Now, this is a big story on One News, and still ahead. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro flags an online post to the NBI, which she believes is a death threat. We have details next. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us here on The Big Story. The Armed Forces of the Philippines says it is still too early to discuss possible charges against Colonel Odi Mongao, who allegedly withdrew his support from President Bongbong Marcos. AFP spokesperson Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla said the case remains under investigation, stressing that no conclusions or charges can be made at this stage.
Ang status niya, he was relieved from post, but under the supervision po of his ground commander. The investigation will ensue, and we are assuring the public that due process will be accorded to the party, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines will conduct this in relation to existing rules and policies that are in place.
Army Training Command Chief Major General Michael Lohico earlier said Mongao has since returned to military control and is fully cooperating with investigators. He is now under the supervision of his ground commander. Meanwhile, despite the issue, the AFP leadership said there is no need for loyalty checks within the ranks. It also assured the public that the military remains united, disciplined, and focused on its mandate, with commanders closely monitoring their troops.
There is no division within the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Nandiyan po yung pagtingin namin ng respeto po sa aming mga higher authorities, and each individual soldier po will adhere to the chain of command accordingly.
And here are the stories coming out of Malacanang on this Tuesday. Executive Secretary Ralph Recto has dismissed rumors of an impending cabinet shakeup, saying speculation over a revamp serves no constructive purpose for the government or the public. He added that all appointees serve at the president's pleasure and are subject to constant performance review, stressing that officials should stay focused on their work. The denial comes amid circulating reports that Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco, Health Secretary Ted Herbosa, and Education Secretary Sonny Angara could be removed from their posts. Meanwhile, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro went to the National Bureau of Investigation to report alleged death threats made against her on Facebook. These posts, published on the page Luminous by Trixie Cruz Angeles and Ahmed Paglinawan, allegedly contained statements implying serious physical harm to Castro. The Undersecretary said she reported the matter to ensure that it is on the record. She has not yet decided on filing formal charges. In response, the said Facebook page denied issuing any threats, saying the post was protected speech. It also accused Castro of attempting to suppress criticism of the administration.
And the Philippines and the United Arab Emirates have signed a historic free trade deal expected to deepen trade and investment ties. President Bongbong Marcos and UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan witnessed the signing of the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA, on the sidelines of the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week 2026 summit. The deal is the Philippines' first free trade pact with a Middle Eastern country. CEPA aims to cut tariffs, widen market access, boost investments, and open more opportunities for Filipino professionals and businesses. It also covers digital trade, MSMEs, sustainable development, and technical cooperation. And finally, for our big picture tonight, Mattel has unveiled its first ever autistic Barbie, expanding its push for inclusion by letting more children see themselves in the world's most iconic doll. Developed with guidance from the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, the doll reflects how some people with autism experience and communicate with the world. Unlike the traditional Barbie, it features flexible wrist and elbow joints that allow self-regulating gestures and eyes that gaze slightly to the side, reflecting reduced eye contact. It also comes with sensory-friendly accessories, including a stress relief toy, noise-canceling headphones, and a tablet. The release builds on Mattel's inclusive Barbie line, which already features dolls with disabilities such as Down syndrome, blindness, and type 1 diabetes. It's very nice of Mattel to have a doll that's very
I'm just
inclusive.
wondering what the doll with type 1 diabetes looks like.
Probably has a glucose monitoring patch and some other accoutrement, and probably comes with a bag with the insulin shots in it. I'm just guessing though, I haven't seen that one. But we did feature the the Down syndrome Barbie.
Yes, we did before. So now there's the Barbie Autistic doll, and it features flexible joints and even a fidget
spinner and a verbal communication tablet. Yeah.
Very nice and very commendable of Mattel. Hopefully more dolls will be featured and included in their next release. But for tonight, that's it for the big story this Tuesday, January 13th. Thank you so much for watching.
We are back here tomorrow at 8 o'clock p.m. We'll see you then.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a good night.